Hello guys, so today I'm uploading a video that's a little bit different than what you are used to. So this is an interview that I did with TJ the Blind Gamer, and you heard that right. The Blind Gamers. He is blind, so this video is about the blind fighting game community. It's very interesting to me because how can someone be blind and play Mortal Kombat? It's pretty incredible. I can see, as you can see, my eyes are functioning properly, and I lose all the time. And then these guys are blind and they're still winning. So I find it absolutely incredible. So today we will explore what the blind fighting community is a little bit for MK11 specifically, and we're going to talk about accessibility, what that means for them, what exists currently that helps them, how they can play this game while being blind, and also what the improvements can be in MK12. And I think the purpose of this video is to introduce you guys to the blind fighting community, but it's also, especially I would say, a message to NRS regarding suggestions on how they can make their game more accessible, because it's not completely accessible right now. There have been improvements. Every game that we see, there seems to be more and more improvements, which is great, right? But there's still some work that the developers can do. I think it's pretty reasonable as well. So we're going to explore those issues. In the meantime, you can see some gameplay, and it's me against him, and he's blind. He's fighting me blind, and I can see, and I still lose sometimes. So I think it's pretty incredible. I was interested in the blind fighting game community when someone commented on my channel that the blind community loves your videos. And I was like, what? There's a blind community? How is that possible? And then when I see this guy's videos on Twitter, he's good. And I'm like, how blind is this dude, right? I was like pretty skeptical. Is he really? Am I reading this properly? Is he actually blind? His name is TJ the Blind Gamer. Is he really blind? Or am I crazy? So he's blind. He can't see anything. He just plays by sound, which is insane. But it actually works. So I think it's important to be accessible. We talk a lot about different groups in this community, right? This includes the blind community. So here's the video. I hope you enjoy it. It's a little bit different, but at least you can see some gameplay as well. It's not just my boring ass face speaking to you the whole time. So here it is. I hope you enjoy. And if someone from NRS sees this, I hope they can take something from it. Yeah, please elaborate on the spectrum of blindness.
All right, well, let's start from one end, right? So on one end, the best analogy I can think of is like you could have an analogy of like a rainbow, or like the radiation spectrum, like gamma rays, X-rays. But the idea is, on one end of the spectrum, you have total lack of vision, so no light perception, no shadows, no anything, right? Then on the other end, you do have what's considered low vision, or I think, if I remember right, it's classified as legally blind if you're below 20/20 in terms of your eyesight. And so in my particular case, I'm way closer to the no vision at all side. Like, I have no vision in my left eye and just a tiny amount of light detection in my right. And so as far as like day-to-day life and any gaming I do, it's all purely by sound and touch or whatever else.
Interesting. So sound and touch. So okay, sound, I get it, right? You can hear the difference between a blocked hit and then someone actually getting hit. Touch, you mean just like the controller vibrations and stuff like that, or do you have anything additional?
Right. No, it's pretty much the vibrations. The vibrations can help with certain things, but that one's a little more like niche. Like, some things it'll be noticeable, sometimes it's not. It just really depends. But a lot of the sound, particularly MK11, revolves around the differences, like just paying attention and understanding. So like you mentioned, a blocked hit or someone just getting hit. So that's pretty clear. Most people who don't even pay attention to sound will hear that difference. But there is a difference between a full dash and a wave dash, right? Where someone cancels the dash with blocking. You can kind of, if you pay close enough attention, you can actually hear that, right? You can hear when someone stance switches. You can hear someone, crouching. And if you pay really, really close attention, you can actually hear when they hit block. That isn't realistic to actually pay attention for, though, because of how quiet it is. But it's just nice to have that detail, right? And obviously, flawless blocking, when that happens, that's like obvious to like most anybody. But one detail not many people know as well is there's a difference between a neutral jump, a forward jump, and a back jump, actually. So neutral jump, leave the ground and come back down. But a forward jump or back jump, they actually, I guess, they flip or do like some little animation. Mm-hmm. So they add a bit of a sound cue so that you can tell, hey, they're jumping toward you or away from you.
Interesting. Is there a difference between the front jump and the back jump, or is it just the same sound?
I think it's the same sound, but it's the same like sound profile, right, or sound design. But when you're kind of paying attention to what's happening, you can tell if they're coming toward you or away from you because of the way the sound works. So MKX did this fantastically. If you ask most of the blind community, most of them will agree that MKX has the best sound design in terms of spatial awareness. Let's say from like left to right. If you throw Sub-Zero's Ice Ball or Scorpion Spear, you'll hear the Ice Ball or whatever go from your very far left in your headset and like pan across the headset from left to right or right to left or whatever. And that transitions to understanding your spacing and things like that. MK11 does that, but to a much lesser extent. It's like they tightened or made that sound like narrower, so it's a little trickier to determine like spacing and stuff. But that's the general idea as far as like you can hear when they jump toward you or away from you. You can kind of hear when you're in the corner. The corner is hard, but mid-screen it's a lot easier.
Do you know if NRS has, how can I say this, if they pay attention to the blind community or just to accessibility when they craft their games? Meaning like the sound, they make it intentionally so that someone who's blind could understands where they're at. Like where do you think NRS are at in terms of accessibility in their games?
So with NRS, generally the sound design they have is just really good, but I know they listen to the blind community. OBS Rattlehead or OBKS Rattlehead or something like that. He, to my knowledge, was the first blind person to really put himself out there in terms of NRS games. Because I think Blind Warrior Sven has done stuff with Street Fighter, but Rattle was the first guy, to my knowledge, to really do stuff for MK9 back in 2012 or 2011-ish. And from there, when he got some exposure for doing that, like he talked to someone from NRS about an interactable, for example, right? You can like do different things off the interactables. We never knew they were there in MK9 as far, or was Injustice 1 they did it first. I think it was Injustice 1. After he spoke with them, with someone, things got added in MKX, I believe it was the first game to do it, where there was a sound specifically to tell us when we were in range for an interactable. And subsequently in MK11 and Injustice 2, that trend followed. So now from MKX to MK11, we have interactable sound cues, which the next thing they did for MK11 was menu narration, right? So if you browse Twitch, right, and you jump into someone's live stream, some of them will go through the menus and the menu will talk to them. That is actually menu narration to help us navigate the menus. And it's not like a text-to-speech or screen reader. I think it's what was his name, Jameson Price. Like he just recorded him. Like they recorded him just saying the menus. So it's a step in the right direction. But hopefully with their next game it's a full TTS or text to speech thing, just so it's like accessible to the whole menu. Because as it is right now with the menu narration featured in MK11, it's more of a you can get to like a fight and practice mode, and that's about it. Like there's no feedback. Like if I wanted to like lab, let's say frame data, right, or a setup, I'd have to memorize the menu or look it up online for like frame data. Well, either look it up online or have a friend like in practice mode, and they would they'd tell me what the numbers are on block and on hit and stuff like that. Luckily, some of the BFGC guys, they were able to make a full text guide, so we can download the file and read it on our phones or computers or whatever devices, and it has everything labeled and written down exactly, so we know like all the practice options, the AI options, character custom slot, that custom slot menu, so you can know what moves you're picking. Thanks to those guys, we were able to actually customize and do whatever labbing we need to as well. But as far as NRS is like with their games design specifically, the fact that you can hear so many details, like I mentioned earlier, like even just simply someone crouching or even playing a block, like their sound design is really well done for the most part, and they do have they show some effort with the interactables and the the menu narration. So I really hope with the next game it's gonna be completely accessible, because the main thing missing from MK11 in my eyes at least is like just a slightly more expanded, I guess would be the right word, sound design, so you could kind of more accurately hear like spacing. And that's more of a sound design engine or sound engine thing than true accessibility. But as far as accessibility design, and I hope they can expand with the narration at the very least.
So right now in MK11, what's accessible is the menu. So and I've heard it myself, right? Like I've inputted it by accident, I've enabled it, and as you move through the menu, there's a guide that says what what the options are. But you're saying that after you get into, let's say you get into practice mode and you pick your character, and then that stops at some point, right? So when you're in practice mode, I can see the frame data displayed, but for you, it doesn't say what the frame data is. And do you think if I do standing 1 with Cetrion and it's -2 on block, do you think that'd be helpful for you, the blind community, if it said -2 after you're finished the hit or the string or whatever?
Oh yeah, it definitely be helpful, and in fact, you can actually look up. There's been a couple people to try and help us do stuff, right? Like I mentioned, some of the BFGC themselves, they wrote a text guide for the practice options and the character moves and all that, right? So we can do that on our own a bit more independently now. Another thing that was really cool was I can never pronounce his name right. It's Shenless or Shenless. He is a Fujin main, if I remember right.
I know who he is.
Yeah. So he and I actually got into contact about 2 years ago. After I wrote a Reddit post talking about how I'm blind and I play MK and stuff like that, right? Just trying to spread the word, right? He contacted me afterward and he brought the idea of a video where basically what would happen was he would do every move that's punishable on block. So like we can hear the move, like the string or the special, so I know what to listen for. And he'd put in a text-to-speech voice after the actual data on block, for example, right? Say Scorpion's spirit close is like negative, I don't remember, like negative 17 or something, I don't remember. Like, so the video worked, so you'd hear Scorpion throw a spear, then you'd hear the voice say how negative it is, and then you would hear like just a basic punish, like Scorpion 1/1 spear or Sub-Zero ice ball or something. And that actually helped a lot because he not only did it for, full combo punish on block stuff, but he did it for like gaps and he did it for like a couple other things. But I remember clearly the punish on block video and the gap video because that alleviated a lot of the pressure, at least for me personally, because at that point I was like, okay, I know what's punishable at the very least for all characters, or at least like what I can realistically punish, and I could learn to fall off block or interrupt or whatever. So like at that point I was personally fine with it, but there are some people who would appreciate data for everything, right? So for me, how I learned my data was like a friend, or when I would stream on Twitch, some people would be in chat and they would tell me on what's on hit, what's on block, right? So like Terminator's forward 4, the big boot, that's plus 18 on hit, -1 on block, right? And I figured that out through chat or some guide videos, right? Because some people like Rufflemonger, I can't say his name right either, but he would do a couple guides he would do some guides and I would get info from there, and eventually got to the point where I knew my data for almost all the characters I played. So what I would do was I knew the menu in practice mode enough, to practice, like try to deal with setup or dealing with wake ups and all these things to where, okay, I know, let's say like I know Nightwolf stand 1 is 7 frame startup. So I'm going to go into practice mode and find the move that I'm having trouble punishing or dealing with in case I forgot the data or whatever, and I would go in practice mode and see how punishable it is. And if I knew the startup on what button I'm pressing, I could kind of gauge how negative or how minus it was. So like the difference between say like Scorpion stand 1 and Scorpion's forward 3, that's a 6 frame difference in terms of startup, because stand 1's 7 and forward 3 is 13. So I knew like if forward 3 couldn't punish it, maybe stand 1 would. So even if I didn't know the data exactly, I would at least have a better idea of like, okay, the punish is a little tighter, so it's probably around like -8, -9, -10.
So just to clarify,
resources.
So the blind community, they put together like a text form to display the data, and you access this through the internet. Like, is there a website or something? I'm trying to check it out to see what it looks like. Or am I understanding this correctly?
It's not a website. What it is a Google Docs document. We would just click on the link and it would bring us to, like, if we had a Google Drive, for example, it would pull up that document and then we could download that document from Google Drive to our devices or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very fascinating to me. Like, at the start, like I mentioned, like I reached out to you because I find it fascinating. I like when you share videos, I look at them and I'm like, this dude is doing all the right things, and you're telling me he's blind. Like in my head, I'm like, how blind is he? So like I didn't know you were
Yeah.
completely blind. I thought yeah maybe he can see a little bit of what's going on, but no, you're just using sound and you're good, dude.
Hmm.
Like you're doing the right things and stuff. And what I'm really curious about is like spacing. How do you gauge where you're at in the map? Are you full screen? Are you mid screen? Like how do you know this?
Yeah, so that is entirely, again, by sound. Like 95% of this is, right? Yeah, Scorpion's all the way on the left side, and Sub-Zero's on the right side. And they throw, like, Sub's Ice Ball from the right to the left, and Scorpion's Spear from left to right. You can hear, the startup a bit, of course, the animation. But you can hear the Spear or Ice Ball travel from your left headphone all the way to the right. The best I can try and describe here is probably visualize it almost like a line. When something starts on the left side, you can hear it travel in a straight line. So like as the line moves, or the projectile or the character or whatever, as it moves, you can hear that from left to right, or right to the left, or wherever. And that's the basic idea of how it works. I'm sure it's baffling to someone who has vision, right? Because for me, I lost my vision when I was 15. I didn't really get like really into fighting games till after I went blind, which is kind of strange, honestly. But I had some exposure before then. I played a bit of Soul Calibur 4, MK versus DC, and I don't know which 3D MK before that. I'm sure I played one for like 10 minutes, and that was it before that. But like my main exposure into fighting games was Soul Calibur 4 and MK vs DC. Then I lost my vision, and then I got MKX. I was like, all right, this is kind of fun. And then MK11 is where I really started getting hardcore into learning more fighting game stuff. I play MK11 primarily, but I've tried others, and it's just a lot of other fighting games just don't sound as good. That's generally how it works, is as long as the sound design is good enough, we could probably play it. So like I know a couple BFGC guys who run Street Fighter 5. Like I've heard of Blind Warriors Sven. I can't say his name properly because SVEN, I'm pretty sure. But he's like the only Street Fighter guy I know, like outside of our main BFGC group. One of the guys says he plays Virtua Fighter. I think Virtua Fighter 5. And I'm just like, how the hell do you do that? And then some of us, of course, stick with MK11. Some of us go back to MKX.
Yeah, it's very unique, I would say. So in terms of the blind FGC, like do you know a few other people who are blind who play MK11? I'm assuming it's a small community.
It's fairly small, but we have a sizable enough, right? We get a few more people here and there occasionally, but generally, yeah, we so myself, Rattlehead, like I mentioned again, and then you have Captain Earshot. He's actually the winner of the all blind tournament we did for MK11. Blindcito, he's another dude. April Cool, Ray Pember, Blind Believer. There's a fair few of us, and so we actually organized to where we ran 2 tournaments for blind people, right? So we did Sento Showdown, which is what we called it, and there's like 15 or 16 entrants, I think. But we did that 2 years in a row. This last like April, May, June-ish area, that time frame, that was our second year doing it. Everyone in that tournament was blind or, very low vision or, some form of visual impairment in that tournament.
How do you think they can make MK12 more accessible? So we talked about the frame data in practice. Anything else? Any other suggestion? How can we make your life easier, essentially, for the next game?
The only things I can think of, the obvious thing would be full, like if they could do it, would be text-to-speech, right? So instead of Jameson Price just reading the menu, it would hopefully be actual like synthesized speech to read, all the menus. It would be able to tell you the data on hit, on block, and then all these different properties and whatever else. And that'd be great. As far as like if I were to look at what they did in 11 in terms of the raw sound engine and like see what they can change from that. Make it so spacing is a little easier to determine, so more closer to MKX in terms of that sound design. And that's the only things I can think of personally, just because a lot of 2D fighting games when you're blind is, the spacing and footsies, that comes with practice and getting a feel for your character's movement and strings and things like that, or normals for that matter. But at least from my experience and then talking to some other blind people, the main thing is a lack of being able to access the information, the data, the practice mode, those sorts of things. And with any luck, the next game will actually improve upon that. Even if it doesn't, I'll still play it just because I do, I enjoy NRS's products. But it'd be great, if they'd expand on what they've done.
I'm just gonna propose something that might sound crazy, but what if you play Terminator and you do forward 2, and as you do that, it says like forward triangle or something if you're on PS4, right? As you do the moves, it says what you're doing. Or just like the name of the move, right? They have names. Do you think that'd be too much?
Right.
Like we might like hear all sorts of sounds non-stop, but what do you think about that?
That could be useful. I could say as a secondary, right? So let's say you're brand new, right? Let's say you're very low vision or even totally blind like myself, and you just picked up MK11. You heard about, there's blind people playing this game. There's blind people running, tournaments where all these blind people playing this game, right? You boot it up, you find the narration. Okay, cool. It reads the menus to me, and then you go to practice mode, Scorpion and Sub-Zero. All right, let's just see what I can figure out. I think ideally it would be kind of two separate options, right? One option would be the frame data itself and maybe the attack height in one, right? So like mid, -14 on block, plus whatever on hit. Like it would kind of say that. But then a secondary option you could have turned on would be like the name in case you didn't maybe you don't know like back one, forward one, or you don't know, or something like that. So like it'd be more of a secondary thing. So in case you do want that extra info, in case one thing I ran into, just for example's sake, I'm trying to keep this brief as well. So True Underdog, he did combo guides for Terminator, right? They're not the most advanced stuff, but they get the job done. And when he described the combo, like the words he used were the names of the strings, and I was like, I don't know the names of the strings, right? So that I was like, okay, I don't know the names of the strings. I know the notation, 1 2 3 4, back 1 4 2, whatever. I know that. But what I did was I paid closer attention to the clips he used when he showed the combos, and I found the moves that sounded like what he said, like what the strings he was saying. So I learned no escape is 4-3-2. That's your low overhead. Or system overload is back 3-1. So like if they did do text to speech, have it read all the menus and data as much as it can, and like I mentioned, have it be a secondary option for the names of the strings, I suppose, or even the specials for that matter. Actually,
what do you think that I can do, me as a content creator, to help you guys? Because I feel for you guys, man. Like I think it's super cool that you are part of this community, and that there's a blind community. And the first time that I saw someone comment like the blind community likes your videos, I'm like, there's a blind community playing. How is that even? Anyways, I'm still fascinated that this is even possible, because I can see everything and I still get my ass kicked. So I couldn't imagine not seeing and being able to play. But how can I help you guys, especially moving forward? This game might be dead, but moving forward, how can I help you guys? Moving
forward, I'd say, let's assume NRS doesn't do any of the suggestions I offered, right? Text to speech and whatever else. At the very least, if we look at channels for inspiration, just having a basic video understanding everything that's punishable, right? That type of content, one, isn't very common. Like not many people actually do that. And two, regardless whether you're blind or not, I'm sure that helps some people who weren't blind anyway. Like some people, they don't lab, right? They don't look at the data. They just play, which is fine. That works for them. But then they see there's content creators out there like, oh wait a minute, what do you mean you can punish this? What's this, right? They figure out, oh wait, I can do a free combo on this dude if he does this move, right? It's like regardless of vision, like most people can figure that part out. So I think, if anything, like I mentioned, like a punishable moves video would be appreciated. And I don't know, man. That's one I can think of off the top of my head, just because there are a fair amount of things you could do. That's just the one immediately, right? Just because the only issue would be we don't know what the mechanics are going to be like for the next game. So it's like I could say, it'd be great to have, like a gaps video or something, right? But there's like, what if the next game doesn't have gaps? So, which I mean, it probably will, right? But like for all we know, it may not. So it might be a little tricky there. So I don't know. That one I'd have to think more on, right? I'd have to think more on, or consolidate and talk to more BFGC guys, and it may come down to, taking community feedback and just forwarding it. Can you explain how you could see at 15 and then eventually you couldn't see, if you don't mind sharing? Basically, what happened was I was a premature kid, or premature baby. I was a 24-weeker, so I was pretty damn early. And So basically, what resulted from that was a lot of problems with my birth necessitated the ventilator because my lungs were, I guess, underdeveloped, and I had actually have a hand impairment because of that's not really tied to the prematurity, but that's more of a genetic thing. It's radial dysplasia. But basically, my lungs were underdeveloped, and they had to do a ventilator. My parents had the choice of ventilator and probably lose my vision. My left retina. So the retina from my left eye detached when I was 5, and that was my good eye. The retina detached in my right eye, and then we tried saving it for a year, but eventually couldn't be helped, and I slammed my eye onto a leg of a bar stool.
Oh my god.
So that hurt. I hit it hard enough to pop all the blood vessels. That was great to find out. It hurt.
Yeah.
And that was when I was 15. So that was like 8 years ago. Wow, I feel old now. That's 8 years ago. Holy shit. Sorry.
So that sealed the deal then, right? So you had vision problems.
Yeah,
and
that
then
pretty
you
much
smash your eyes on the chair, and then that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, my vision wasn't gonna come back before that, but it pretty much made it faster. Like made the vision loss. Yeah, it was not a good day.
Well, that's not lucky. I'm sorry to say.
No.
The smashing eyes on chair is just the most unlucky thing in the world. Sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm just this situation that's incredible.
I was kind of shocked after it happened. I was like, "What the hell just happened?" The likelihood of hitting your eye on a leg, the stool is upside down, right? So the bottom part of the leg was in the air.
Oh my god.
Right. So that's what. Yeah, so like I hit it the right angle, so it was just my eye that got like caught pretty much. The rest of my face, no,
left or right?
Or right.
Mm-hmm.
The eye that had vision at the time, they were trying to save.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so it was not fun at all.
Like the likelihood of you having vision problems and smashing your right eye is just like 0.0001%, right? But, holy shit.
Yeah. It's about as likely as flawlessing a Citron player.
That's right. It's even less likely.
Oh shit. Fair enough.
Okay. Well, thanks again for your time. It was nice talking to you.
Thanks again for having me, and I appreciate the good discussion. Actually,
Okay.
It'll be fun.
Cool. All right. Have a good night.
You as well.
See ya.
I'm going sub! You're getting mixed!